Well, that was definitely a lot of fun, if you ask me, because we finally have a Voltron show that has both a good amount of continuity, animation style that I'm perfectly okay with, even though I did like the original style, and I can keep track of all the characters, so it's got the best of everything. However, there's a huge issue with this series. If you pay really close attention to the main Voltron Force's personalities, along with all the backstory that is included in this series, you'll realize that there is absolutely no way that this series could have possibly occurred if you're following the original series' continuity, and regardless if you want to use the last 20 episodes from the original show or the third dimension, it doesn't matter what combination you use. Like with the original Land Before Time, there is no way that what is actually being shown between that film and the follow-up ones perfectly lines up. Now, that's not to say that something like the original series or the first Land Before Time happened to create this product, but you just know that that's not the case because, if I recall correctly, the amount of time that's passed between the events of the original series to now isn't a oh my god huge amount of time. Like, they're trying to go for a little bit of next generation feel here, but there's no way a generation has passed, so it's more like 10 years or something like that. And just the way that Lance and Allura have both changed, it doesn't line up. Oh yeah, 10 years, that can alter a person's personality because it's been 9 years since I graduated high school, so my personality has changed quite a bit, but I'm still close to who I was back then in tons of other ways. So Lance all of a sudden being more responsible, and Allura a lot more able to balance and mindful of the balancing bit between being a member of the Voltron Force and being the leader of her planet. It just doesn't work like that. And then Pidge, sure, he's older, so the deepening of his voice, that works, but a couple of his aspects just didn't really line up, if you ask me. And then the various bits of descriptions that they use for the planet that Pidge and Chip are from, along with Earth. It just didn't line up with what I remember from the original show. I can't tell you exactly what the problem is because I didn't write that stuff down, but I know that there had to have been at least some kind of confliction with one of those things, and then the fact that those actual human beings in charge of Galaxy Garrison or the Alliance, or whatever you want to call it, instead of robots, that completely tosses out third dimension. So, there's no way that the original series, as it is, made this happen. This is a completely different Voltron universe. Not to say that they didn't do a good job with it, because as I said, I enjoyed this show, but I really need to stress that there's no way the original show could have happened. And then, while I was hooked to what was going on in the first couple of episodes, because I did like the idea of the Voltron Force being right on the line of doing the right thing and yet making enemies of the people that should be their allies, they do a lot of setting up in those first 2 episodes really quickly, because the origin of the Voltron lines going bad, I don't recall ever getting a firm explanation as to why they went bad. Maybe I forgot. And then setting up Wade as the villain, that happens way too quick. I mean, like, they do try to give him some motivation, but given what he does a little bit later in the show, it seems less about the fact that he wants to punish the Voltron force. It's that he wants to be a dictator, but not really call himself a dictator, and nonetheless make it believe that he's for the good of all the galaxy. It's just, that guy's kind of messed up. Not to say that I didn't get menace from him, because I gotta be honest, I got way more menace from him than I ever did with Zarkon, not having seen Go Lion, so I don't know how he works there, but... Right. And then, Lotor. They do kind of rush his origin, although I'm more okay with that, especially since they actually made him the primary bad guy in this series. Thank you, because, as I said when I was talking about the original show, Lotor is technically bad guy number 2, and yet, given how much he does, you should actually feel him way more than Zarkon. So, them not really mentioning Zarkon here, I do, well, not using Zarkon, I approve of that, but I would have liked a better explanation as to what happened to him, along with Hagar. Sure, they give the line that said essence of Hagar, and then they, I think, use that to corrupt the female bounty hunter or soldier that's present in the second episode, but since I was still getting used to the characters, when I saw that, that was kind of confusing. Right, so I guess that I am doing this in reverse, where I talk about everything that I don't like, and then talk about what I do like. Well, let's talk about what I did like. The sort of next generation aspect that they were going for, I actually really enjoyed that, because some of you may disagree with me, but I really do feel like this show managed to blend use of the original 5 Voltron forces, while including Daniel, Vince, and Armenia in here, and doing really good with them. Yeah, there was some repetition there, and you might feel that the free cadets are immature, but as Allura and Keith point out, isn't Lance still immature, and doesn't Hunk still have a couple of moments, for lack of a better term, in this thing? Yeah. But I really did like what they did with them, and how the 3 of them had story arcs that would dominate a couple of episodes, such as the episode in the junk yard where I think they encountered the spider thing for the first time, and then Daniel having himself be infested with some kind of energy. I forget what they call it. Vince getting the thought telepathy business, and then there was even an episode with Armenia where she's working with Allura in terms of royal business, because they are related, although you really would not know it based on their personalities. And then them gradually succeeding members of the original Voltron force, even though the picks were kind of obvious as it went along, because Armenia being related to Allura, and then Vince, he'd been working with Pidge for so long, very obvious, and it was obvious that Lance was not going to give up ownership of the Red Lion, and Hunk, not enough story arc with him, unfortunately, so that just leaves Keith, although he did sort of rescind it at the end. So I really liked all that business. And then some of the additional things that Voltron can do, along with Lotor's creation, some of it I did like. For instance, having different lions being the head. I don't actually mind that. Sure, you might argue it's just an excuse to get some flashy animation on the screen, but I liked what they turned out, especially since they expanded it so Voltron created a couple of things that came together, although I'm pretty sure that Third Dimension in the original show utilized this trick once each, because you had the dragons in Third Dimension, right? So I think that that balances it out. There was some over-the-topness, though, because all the electrocution stuff that Vince went through and that how automatically it solves everything, that did kind of get to me. And then I think that there are some people that would argue that the ability to form Voltron with only 4 of the 5 lions kind of dispels the myth of Voltron, but you gotta remember, in Vehicle Force Voltron, it isn't just all 15 components come together to form Voltron. Each individual team can form their own 5-person thingy-majig. Because you gotta remember, Dire Rugger and Go Lion aren't actually supposed to be related, and even though they try to tie the concepts together, it's just barely any connection. If you were to get rid of Pigeon Chip being brothers... Right. Okay. What else to mention? Oh, I do like how there was a little bit of an attempt to show other aspects of the Voltron universe, because those episodes where it shows that Keith got mixed up with Underworld figures at one point and then that prison escape, it's just nice little other things that they try to throw in there, and I approve of that. Oh, and since we haven't talked about the Voltron's sidekick, Maximus, I think that he was called. Sometimes he was really good, but other times not so much, because you're seriously willing to put up with this guy for that many times, Voltron, even though Voltron does have the excuse that he needs them to keep him supplied with all that, I know it's not called Dark Eco, because that's from the Jak and Daxter video games, but it looks like a Dark Eco, so, for lack of a better term, keep him supplied with that Dark Eco to keep him rejuvenated and alive, because technically he is supposed to be dead. So it's more practical than Zarkon constantly forgiving Hagar for that creation of whatever Robo-Beast that she did in the original series, but there were moments where it did get to me. And then also let's bring up the cliffhanger for this series, because, okay, yes, it is a cliffhanger, but it's like the most random and shoehorned cliffhanger that I've ever seen. Like, it's only in the last 20 seconds of this episode in a completely different location than what was going on before these last 20 seconds, and there's barely any explanation. Like, I actually had to look up what the heck that cliffhanger was supposed to mean, because I'm like, what is the setup that they're going for? It is just so jammed in there. So, this series ends on a cliffhanger? Only because the writers are just trying to be creative, please. In my eyes, this did not end on a cliffhanger, if you ask me. You should not really count those last 20 seconds, they're crap. Okay, so that's like the first time I've ever watched something that they say ends on a cliffhanger, and it's just utter stupidity, honestly. But I would have liked to have seen what they were going to do with this, because I think that they could have created a villain with more dynamics to take Wade's place, or they might have brought Wade back again, because they did technically defeat him like halfway through this show, and then he breaks out in like episode 21 or something like that, and then they take care of him in 23. So I would have been interested to see where they would have gone with that. And then also, I do think that there was more that they could have done with the cadets here, because you very easily could have phased out Allura and Pidge in a second season of the show, like they phase out Karan here and in the third dimension as well. So you could have done that and then have Keith appear on and off, because Underworld context, he could have easily been the informant for them in quite a few situations with the help of Pidge, or maybe that could have been a subplot of a few episodes. Pidge sending Keith in for an undercover mission. And then also, although this might be wishful thinking on my part, I think that at the beginning of this show, for like episodes 2 through 4, I think that they were trying to set up the possibility that Daniel and Armenia could have potentially become a thing at one point, because the way Daniel comments when he sees Armenia, ooh, nice, and she just gives a total, not literal spit in his face, but a figurative spit in his face. But the way that she did it, from my perspective, it was not, hey, quit hitting on me, it's shut up, you little, but just over the top. As I said, I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking on my part, because they never became total friends over the course of the show, but there were a couple of moments where it seemed like she cared about him a little more than you would have thought, given the dialogue that she had a few episodes earlier, like when he first gets infected with the bad stuff, when the evil tree was whacking all around the farmlands on Allura's home planet, which I'm stupidly blanking on the name right now because it's the same in every single series. Phew, what kind of fan am I, right? So, it would have been interesting to see if they would have gone down that route, especially since this series was the most direct and implying that Keith and Allura could have potentially become a thing, but given how they were tying Keith's heritage to have been from Allura's planet, maybe they would have thrown in the idea that they're cousins or something like that, even though it is perfectly legal to marry your cousin in more places than it's not, if I last recall, or at least in the developed countries. Trust me, look it up. You'd be surprised. Doesn't happen often, but it is legal. Right. And it seems like reception for this show was good, although you do see people on YouTube trashing it, but I'd wager that those people are treating it as a perfectly direct sequel to this show, whereas I realized about a third of the way through the show that there's no way that this show can work. Right, so really enjoyed that show, and I'm looking forward to checking out the comics now, because I'm pretty sure that Voltron Legendary Defender, the Netflix show, involves an entirely different group of people despite involving the lions, so I think it's time for me to check out the comics, because I know that the comics use the original crew for Voltron, right? See ya, and for those of you who stuck around, thanks for doing so.